That will be it. Yeah. Thanks. I think during the explanation, Umar jumped in. You're welcome. Ahmed, NA, and I'm Mohammed. Like I said, today we're gonna be discussing about risk assessment. Does anybody want to give me the definition of risk assessment now? While you're doing that, I'll just look to share my screen for today's lecture. Yeah, I'm hearing you if you have a definition for risk assessment. Tunji?
Okay, I'm here, sir.
Yeah, go ahead now.
So when I say, let me know, because I couldn't really put those your words together majorly. My own risk assessment definition is describes the overall process or method where we can identify hazard, analyze and evaluate the risk of associated with the hazard, determine the appropriate way to eliminate or to mitigate the hazard also.
Yeah,
as simple as, like, just to bring everything you said together in my own words.
Yeah, to be honest, you really got it. You got exactly what I was trying to say. It's number one, for the job that you are going to be carrying out, a careful examination. And when I mean careful, we are trying to explain, or we're trying to pass a message that a risk assessment should not be a rushed one. It should not just be a table checklist of it being done, because you might end up injuring somebody. You might end up not even know what you're doing. You might end up not even know who is going to be involved. So it's a very careful exercise on carrying out this, before carrying out this work. I know that this work is going to cause, potential hazard. And what are we doing? We are taking precautionary measures or preventive measures to either do or to either eliminate, which is eradicate, or reduce, which is mitigate the harm. Did you get that?
That's correct.
So exactly like I was saying, I know this picture looks somehow, but to be honest, when they say careful examination, this is what a careless examination of risk assessment might lead us to. So what went wrong here? And what is it that we can do better?
Number one, the person underneath the container probably did not stand in the proper way, and also maybe the sling belt or the, shall I say, the safe working load of the crane being used is being they pass the normal safe working load for the crane being used, which might cause this actually.
Okay, let's keep it out. There are so many root causes, So there are so many root causes to this. There are so many primary causes, and of course there will be secondary causes as well, and there will be contributory causes. It's not like it just this one cause just made everything happen. It should just be contributory causes as well. But the whole scenario I'm trying to paint out here is now, first of all, if we can play back this tape to try and prevent this occurrence, let's do a quick risk assessment. What is it that will be the number one, the hazard that we'll be looking at?
Number one, checking the safe working load of the crane.
Now, what is hazard?
Okay, definition of hazard, sir?
Yeah.
Hazard is any occurrence that can cause an harm to a person or that can cause a danger, that can create a danger or harm to a person or to properties.
Exactly. So let's keep it in a very, very nice concept which you started with. and it is anything that can cause harm is an hazard. Are you following me? So
Yes, sir.
anything that can cause harm or has the potential of causing harm, and it's in around the vicinity or work environment of this work that you are doing, is an hazard. So now let me come back again to the question, because this is what is going to be asked of us when we are doing an exam, so that we have the picture, we have the mental picture of what we're trying to portray, of what we're trying to examine. Because if we do not have the mental picture of what are the hazards, we will carry out a risk assessment, full sheet, but not even doing any careful examination. So now you've just given me a nice examination, which is anything that can likely cause harm. What will be the hazard for this operation? What are the hazards? One hazard.
Staying under the container. Probably staying under the container.
That's fine. Another person, can someone tell me?
I think the container itself is a hazard because it is the one that will cause the harm.
Thank you very much. That guy just hit it to my friends. He just hit it on the head. Because Sunji, what caused harm to this guy on the floor?
Is the container, sir.
Exactly. So the container gone is the hazard. Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
Now, even under the container, you can call it an hazardous position. But the root cause, the main container is the one, and the container was the one that was the hazard in this situation. So when you're doing a risk assessment now, if there's, like, for instance, now there's another broken bottle, by the side, or there is a hole in the container that is even lying. I mean, let's assume this container did not fall on him. You get me? And there is another container where we are the port of starboard. I mean, there's a hole in this container on the roof of this container or the port of starboard side. We will say that, there are even two hazards. One, the container up, and two, the hole down there. Then if again we are looking at all those things, and then there's some electrical parts again by the starboard side of where this guy is, there are three hazards now. The container up, the hole by the port side, and then the electrical one by the starboard side. Now you can do a careful examination of risk assessment, and you will find 15 hazards. And that's what we want. That's what we, the examiners, really want to really catch from the student. Are you able to spotlight everything that can cause harm in this operation? Are you able to prevent this guy's death? It is not just a matter of where he's staying, but it's a matter of, are you able to see what will have happened? And that's when Umar hit it right there at the spot. That is an hazard. So even when we are even doing operations, on the deck, you just wake up on the deck, you are not even on duty. But you see some people already on the deck, they walk in and stuff like that, and they carry the way with the walk. Right there, you can really spot something that is dangerous. I say, no, that is an hazard. If you spot one container up, you can stop the job and say, no, that is an hazard. When there's an hazard being spotted, especially when the work is carried on, we do what we call a careful re-examination of the assessment. I call it again, a careful re-examination of the assessment. And the examiners we really love you guys to say that. So one, spotting this potential harm, spotting this potential hazard. And Omar has just spotted it. So where you stay, it might be a potential, it might be an hazardous environment, but what is the hazard there? Are you following me? So in all this stuff now, my own aim is to try and let us understand what this hazard is. Two, there are two things we need to carefully examine, which is one, the hazard, and then two, the risk itself in this risk assessment. So now, can you tell me what's the risk? What is the definition of risk? Yeah, anybody. Nima Alpha. Umar. Tunji, are you there?
Yes, yes, sir.
So what's a risk? Can you define risk for me?
Okay, I wanted to allow every other persons to talk. That's why I kept quiet a little bit, sir. Okay, according to, like, I can say a risk is now exposed to danger when a person or someone or something is being exposed to danger or harm or loss.
Can you comment on that statement? Maybe if you rephrase it, I might consider it.
Okay, let me say a situation. A risk is like a situation involving someone being exposed to danger or harm.
Explain it. Let me try and understand what you're trying to say.
Okay, when we say something is risky, that means such a thing could cause an harm or a danger to the person. So a risk is that situation. A risk is like I will call it a verb now. A risk
All
is
right,
a verb.
let's pause there. I'll really explain that risk for us, and I want us to get it. It's very important. We're gonna get that risk. Usman Mohammed, hit it. Let me hear your point.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, the risk is exposing somebody or something to danger. Actually, that one is the risk.
Okay, that's another one. And like I said, I'm still gonna hit that risk. That risk, and I really like us to catch it when it's hit. Umar, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, he said almost the same thing that I wanted to say. A risk is a level of exposure to danger.
When you mean level of exposure, what do you mean?
Yes, like the more risky.
In this case now, okay, now let's break it down so that we can. Like in this case now, what's the risk here? In this picture.
Okay.
I think caution him or death.
Just easy. Umar, after Umar, then Tunji, after Tunji, then Usman. I needed one question. What is the risk here?
Caution or death, something.
Loss of life.
Who said loss of life?
Usman, sir.
Okay, we're all getting it around the point, but I like us to repeat this, and this is coming from COSWP. This is coming from the from COSWP, like I said, Code of Safe Working Practice. A risk is the chance, the likelihood that someone will be harmed by the hazard that is spotted. The likelihood of the hazard to cause harm. How likely is this hazard going to kill somebody? How likely is this hazard going to injure somebody? Are you getting what I'm saying? So yes, you might have that container up or wherever it is. And then if this man was standing far away, that container there has the potential to cause harm. But the likelihood of it causing harm to this man, is it high or is it low? You're standing on it.
It is low if he was standing far away from the place.
If he was standing far away. So that's the risk. So now, that's another thing now. If you look at it now from another different angle, if he was standing close, was the likelihood, was it high or it was low? I need answers. If you're standing
The
right under
likelihood
it, is it high or is low?
Is high.
is high.
Is high. Very good. Now, when I said the risk assessment, if we come back to the beginning, is a careful examination of the nature of the job in order to spot hazard and then try and reduce and mitigate, reduce it by mitigating it or by eradicating it. If you spotted that, oh, the job that we're going to be carrying is right under this container, how can we be able to either focus? Let's first start by reducing. And then we now said, okay, we'll shift this container a little away. It was first high. When we shift the container away, what's the risk now? Is it high or is low? Or it still remains the same?
The risk
It's low.
It's low.
it
Now let's
remains-
look at another example. By the time I started, even in my pre-start of this class, I mentioned I was on a 4-story building. There was fire burning down the staircase, and I needed to use only the window to get out of the building, which I would jump. So now, the risk of my leg, breaking when I jump from 4-story building is obviously high. Why? Because I will most likely break my leg if I jump from 4-story building. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Now, people around went and looked for mattress, mocha foam, vital foam, put it all on themselves. As the likelihood of my leg breaking, has it reduced? Has it stayed the same? Or has it even increased?
It has reduced.
Yeah?
Reduce, sir.
It has
Has
reduced. Now we are getting the definition of risk. The hazard is the container. The risk itself is the likelihood of that container causing me harm. It's the likelihood of that container crashing on me. Are you following me?
That's
The
correct, sir.
hazard is the 4-story building. The distance of the 4-story building is a very great hazard. The likelihood of my leg breaking if there is no mattress is high. Now, if there is mocha foam or vital foam and all the foams that you're trying to put, it has not stopped my leg from breaking, but it has done what? It has reduced the likelihood that my leg will break.
Mm.
So now we'll be able to spot the hazard and we'll be able to spot the risk. And that is when we have a comprehensive risk assessment. Are you following me? So now the risk assessment itself, it's not just a paper top exercise, or it's not just an exercise where we want to remove the container away. The first thing that should come to our mind is how can we remove the hazard? But in some cases, that hazard must still be there. In some cases, the distance between the 4-story building will still be there, and the staircase is burning. We cannot eliminate this hazard, but there's still something we can do, minimize the risks. And that is where examiners really want us, really want you guys to tell us that, do you understand what risk is? And when they ask you what risk is, the only answer is the likelihood of this hazard to cause harm. Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
So
Yeah.
now let's come back again to this picture. And someone should just tell me, what was the risk here? Was it high? Was it low? Or what?
The same picture that we're seeing, that the guy is dead. This is very hard.
I'm trying to, of course, assume the guy was not dead. Assume you are the safety officer. Assume that you were carrying out a risk assessment before this job went in. I have seen such people when they've done this risk assessment. That's why the team is very careful when it tells you a careful examination. It's not just telling you go and examine. So people will come here and come and examine and they'll write, don't worry, the likelihood is low. What happened? This small container. In short, we're gonna move on because the answer here is obvious. I is even an understatement to what has happened to this guy.
Yes.
But to be honest, many will have not been able to spot it if you are not able to do a careful examination with full understanding of a risk assessment. And that is why we don't play with risk assessment in any way. On board, don't play with it in any way. In the exam, don't play with it in any way at all. So let's move on again in my slide. We started late today, so I'm not sure we'll be able to finish the slide, but I have another activity for next week. But I would really like us to go back to our COSWP and try and really grasp it. As well, try and really grasp what risk assessment is. I already know, especially when I was doing my captain license, gosh, these guys were good in drilling me on what risk assessment is. And the health and safety as well, that's the UK regulation. It's general, let's explain, is a suitable and sufficient assessment shall be made of the risks of the health and safety of workers arising in normal courses of their activities, and which I and Tunji had a lovely chat about. Your activities, almost everything that you're doing, you need to carry out a risk assessment, especially on the ships. And it's just with the purpose of spotting the group of workers at a particular risk. And that's the point I'm going to. Because a risk assessment does not just stop at identifying hazard. It identifies who this hazard will hurt or it will harm. Now look at that man over there in the picture there. So you carry out a risk assessment for this whole job. And you did not really specify that no, somebody that is standing here also, something like this will happen to him. So you should know the kind of experienced person you put there. Omar, will you send a cadet down there?
Certainly no, sir.
Thank you. And there are so many other jobs, especially when we are carrying out enclosed space entry. And in that case, we even go further, which we are going to talk about next week, a permit to work, a proper permit to work. We're going to really bisect it and analyze what permit to work means. But let's just assume for a scenario with the example of next week. Let's start looking at it now of entering into an enclosed space. An enclosed space that will be abandoned for so long. When you're carrying out a risk assessment, you know that the people inside that tank are the ones that are going to be, the likelihood of them being hurt are the ones inside the tank. But of course, the risk assessment covers everybody because even people on top of the tank are also going to be involved in the risk assessment. So now, who are you sending inside that tank? Do they understand what to do in case of emergency? Do they understand the job scope? Do they understand the safety mechanism that you've put in place, such as your BA set, such as your checking each checking each spot with your O2 meter, such as understanding H2S. The likelihood, who are the people involved? So the people involved also is something that even you carrying out a risk assessment, you must pay attention to. So that's one thing about risk assessment as well. And that's one thing I think somebody failed to mention. But the examiner was right to call him back and say, see, you need to mention this part next time to me. So in a risk assessment, who is involved in the job? Or a group of people involved in a particular job. Then measures to be taken to comply with the employer's duty under regulations, but it's still more of measures to be taken as per your SMS or as per the mitigating steps that you have put in place. And code of safe working practice is not far from the answers to a proper risk assessment. You have the templates there, even in code of safe working practices, COSWP. And this is where, you know, we all ourselves really want to really go and check. Just have a read about it. Honestly, you will not regret it. Just have a read about risk assessment, especially if you are on board, you're trying to get a grasp of a good risk assessment, or you are going for an exam. Pick that coursework, check that risk assessment, just that chapter, make some jotting, and you will know that you will be able to strategize and put a strategic answer to any question and yeah, for those who want to check, is in chapter 1 as well. Then I'll just quickly jump. I'm not going to be able to go into too much, but we've talked about the two elements that I really wanted us to portray. And what is a risk? A risk has two elements: a likelihood that a hazard may occur, and then the consequences. That's the consequences of the hazardous event. Then a hazard which Uma has spotted, that container is the source. Is the source of the potential harm. It's not just the guy was standing, no, it's the source itself. Where is it coming from? Assuming the container did not drop on the guy, but the crane itself dropped on the guy. That means the crane was the hazard, not even the container. Because there are times like that. No, that one is overboard. That one they will know that, you know, this one. it was really an incident that was, you know, nobody could stop. But the hazard is the source of the potential harm or danger, or a situation which the potential for harm or danger. Stages in risk assessment. Coming back again to my own definition, and today I needed to be here as well. My definition is what? You know, careful examination. And that careful examination is, what kind of work are we doing? Is it a mooring operation? Is it an STS operation? Is it a bunkering operation? Is it an anchor handling operation? What is the work exactly that we're doing? You have to classify it. That's the beginning of it. Then we start jumping into identifying the hazard. And to be honest, that is where you need to be very careful. That is where your carefulness comes in. We don't identify hazard carelessly. Because if you just identify hazard, you just say, okay, standing under here is the hazard. No, Omar has said it. That container is an hazard. And somebody might say, okay, the container is an hazard, so the crane is not an hazard. No, the container might not even be the hazard that will cause that harm, but the crane itself might cause the harm. There might be holes, there might be electrical parts, and I pointed out some other things that we can find around the surface of that guy, but only one killed him. But fine, there might be other hazards around him as well. Then now, that is when you now identify your risks. Risk control. And then you estimate the risk. Estimate what is the risk? The likelihood of this thing happening. Is it going to be high? The likelihood of the crane hitting. The crane, the likelihood is down is low. The crane is far. The container is up here. Okay, let's shift it. Are we bringing down the risk? So now this is another thing that we're going to have to that we'll also look at as well. Is I'm jumping from a 4-story building, like I said, and then they've put the foams for me, the Vita foam, the Mocha foam, and all those things itself. But if my leg already is almost broken and I still jump, the likelihood that my leg will completely be totally broken is still there. It's still high. So if it's something like a fresh boy, I mean, who is still strong and the legs are still strong, you know, yeah, you can jump. The risk is low. But if your legs are still delicate, you know, any small thing, you know, even the leg, you are still on crutches and you're about to jump a 4-story building, even though you are landing on all the foams, your leg will not remain the same. That means it's still high. It's still the same thing about that guy that was seen there. Even though you have pushed the job away, I mean, you have pushed the container right away from it, but we still have wind, gusting wind, and the container is empty, that can still blow the container to right to him, the risk is still high. So what I'm trying to say is, when you've made a risk assessment, when you've put in some control measures and you estimate the risk and you've brought the risk down, you've mitigated it, you have to do what? Determine if that risk is fine at its new stage, or there are still things that you can do to bring down the risk. Determine the tolerability. So I know it's a lot for us to really grasp in, but I really employ us to really go down to COSWP risk assessment chapter 1. So we mitigate the risks is the stage I'm trying to get to. Mitigate the risks, then find out again this new risk, is it tolerable? Can we use it? If it's still high, then do not do anything until you minimize it. Umar, quick question. Just this one is not anywhere. If you still find out that the risk is really very high, even after you've put in all your mitigation action, what will you do?
You have to stop the work.
Thank you. You stop the work if it's not tolerable. You stop that work, you don't go ahead with it unless you've been able to bring down the risk to a tolerable risk. A tolerable level. So we don't just say, oh, we have put mattress there, jump. No. You might jump for A, but B, when B jumps, B will not remain the same again. So these are the things. I'm trying to use these basic examples, but I'm sure that even in our own scope of works that we've had experience on doing on board, we can be able to even provide more greater examples down to the examiners as well. And even on our own ships. Even though you have done a risk assessment, you have put in mitigating measures, and the team you have not brought it down to a tolerable level, don't go ahead. Don't even tell examiner we are going ahead. So I'm stopping the work until until the risk has gone down to the minimum level. So we are bringing it from high, we are bringing it down to low. Or if it's medium, it's manageable. I think I'll stop here today because, and from next week, I would really like us to come early so we will go through on a risk assessment, because the risk assessment, like I said, is not just a company format or a company template where all of us will just feel hazard, blah, blah, blah. No, we're going to find out how this thing became high, how this thing became medium, or how it became low risk. So there's high risk, there's very high risk, there's medium risk, there's low risk, and there's very low risk. And what is it that brought it? And I'm just gonna say this, that we're dealing with likelihood of harm there. We're also dealing with the severity of the harm. The severity of the harm, how serious it is. And if we go back to this slide, which is where I'll stop on now, can anybody tell me the severity of this harm?
Very extremely high.
Extremely high.
When I say even the extremely high is an understatement. You know, this is brutally high. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is brutally high. But this is what I'm talking about. You see, the severity of the harm and then the likelihood of the harm brings in to get our risk level, which we'll start with, like I said, next week. We try and bring it down. We try and do a risk assessment. And I know there was one of the candidates, they gave me a risk assessment, like a risk assessment for me for moral operation, and it wasn't funny. As easy as it looks in the exam, if you're not really even like conscious of what is hazard, what is risk, what is likelihood of harm, what is severity, we might not be able to get where we are going to. So with that, I'll stop. And thanks everyone for coming to the class. I'll stop the share now. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for coming. I hope you've been able to understand this risk assessment lecture.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much, sir. Really appreciate.
That's great. So we'll see you again next week. And like I said, we'll come in from the risk assessment, and then we'll be able to profile it into more. If we have time, we'll go into habits to work as well.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right then. Bye bye. Yeah.
Bye, sir.
Bye, Captain Joshua. Thank you very much for coming.